Hi, Dina. We can start now.
Okay. Good morning to participants in Washington. Um, Good afternoon to colleagues in Africa or Europe who might be joining. And good evening from Singapore, where I am, and also to participants in Asia. So I'm Dina O'Malley Deininger. I'm the practice manager for agriculture and food in the East Asia and Pacific for the World Bank. So welcome to everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today on this webinar on keeping food safe from farm to plate, digital innovations for transforming food safety outcomes in China. So this webinar is part of the series organized by the World Bank on World Bank's data-driven and digital agriculture community of practice. Now, before we get started, let me just go over some housekeeping. Now, this webinar, I think you can see it on your screen. This webinar series is being recorded and will be available in the digital agriculture website, which you can see at the bottom of the announcement. Now, after the presentations, there will be a question and answer session. Um, but however, while the speakers are making their presentations, do go ahead and write your questions in the chat box, and the organizers will then collect all your questions and then share this with the speaker end of all the presentations. Okay, so to get started, so this webinar is really very timely. It's really very timely in the sense that it follows on the World Food Safety Day, which we celebrated yesterday. So this is really an extension of the World Food Safety Day. So in this webinar, we will learn about the different elements of the digital ecosystem in China and how they contribute to better food safety outcomes. So we have a very long a webinar today. We have uh, first the opening remarks by the Martin Reiser, who is the country director for China, Mongolia, and Korea for the World Bank. Now, after this, we will have five very distinguished speakers who will talk to us about very exciting topics. And let me introduce them now, and then we'll call on them later to start their presentations. So our first speaker is Sitaram Chandra Machiraju. He is the Senior Agribusiness Specialist in the Agriculture and Food Global Practice, and he's based in Beijing. So we'll talk about the World Bank support to China Food Safety Improvement Project. Now, CETA has been leading projects and analytical work focusing on sustainable and modern food systems, climate smart agriculture, digital agriculture, food safety, green investment funds, and private capital mobilization in China and Mongolia. And then CETA then will be followed by Deputy Director General Shenwen Wang from the Shenzhen Administration for Market Regulation in China. Maybe you can wave, Mr. Yeah, okay. He will present on the digitization as a means of promoting food quality and safety. So DDG Shenwen oversees the agriculture and animal husbandry supervision and smart supervision in the uh, um, Shenzhen Administration for Market Regulation. Now, our third speaker is Patrick Jonassen. Patrick, oh, there you go. Okay, so he will speak on digital innovations for food safety in China. Supply chain collaboration thrives on standardization. Now, Mr. Jonassen manages he serves as the Director of Public Policy for Asia and the Pacific in GS1, where he manages government affairs and external cooperation with a specific focus on cross-border trade, supply chain integrity, traceability, and food safety. He works with the private sector and the Asia Pacific governments to further the use of supply chain standards, facilitating safety and efficiency in international trade processes. Our fourth speaker is Mr. Mile He. Mile, okay, there he is. Oh, yeah, please wait. Thank you. Okay, who is the head of the Agriculture Asia for Swiss RE. He will discuss how we keep food safe from farm to plate, digital innovations for transforming food safety outcomes in China. So Mr. He leads the regional agriculture team and is responsible for the overall development of the agriculture reinsurance business in Asia. His role covers agriculture catastrophic modeling development, agriculture product innovation and solutions, agriculture insurance technology development, and new markets exploration. And our final speaker is Mr. Juni Deng. Juni, okay. Um, he is the Chief Technology Officer for Ping An Bank, and he will discuss about the innovation driving digitization, the operating industry, and interconnectivity. Mr. Deng will bring a unique perspective on the combination of financial technology and business scenarios. He has extensive experience on the Internet of Things, blockchain, big data, artificial intelligence, and other cutting edge technologies. So each speaker will have 10 minutes for their presentation, and we'll have the question and answer afterwards. So let me hand it over to Sita to start his presentation on the China Food Safety Project. Over to you, Sita.
I think we will have a short video from Martin. Vivek will run the video, and immediately after the video, I'll step in.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, we have an opening remark from Martin Reiser.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Martin Reiser. I'm the country director for the World Bank in China. And I'd like to welcome you warmly for this seminar to discuss digital innovations for transforming food safety outcomes. Yesterday was World Food Safety Day, and it seems an appropriate date for us to have this discussion. I want to make a few opening remarks, but before I do so, I would like to welcome the key speakers at the seminar, who are Mr. Shenwen Huang, who is the Deputy Director General of SAMR and Shenzhen, Mr. Patrick Jonassen, Public Policy Director, Asia Pacific at GS1, Mr. Mael He, who is the Head of Agriculture at Swiss Re, and Ms. Bin Yujie from Ping An Bank. I'm very sorry that I can't be with you this morning, but I hope you have good discussions. I want to start by quoting some statistics that show why the issue of food safety is so important. Globally, the costs of foodborne diseases total $100 billion. In China alone, those costs are estimated to be $30 billion. 70% of all emerging infectious diseases have an animal origin. We think that COVID-19 may be among them, although this is not finally established yet. And 73% of all antibiotics used globally are used in animals. These are the facts that we have to deal with. And this requires a new approach, an approach that integrates animal and human health. We call this the One Health approach. So how can we work within the One Health approach? We need to work at three levels. We need to work at the regulatory level to establish a regulatory and risk management system for food safety. We then need to work at the value chain level to establish traceability systems and enforce those food safety regulations. And finally, we need to work at the enterprise level to help them get access to innovative technologies, including digital technologies, which are at the heart of the discussion today, to help them better comply and ease supervision of food safety standards at the farm and enterprise level. Now, the complexity of the system requires a risk-based approach. And a risk-based approach can only work if the various agencies involved work together, if data is shared, if there is transparency, and when there is trust. Digital technologies can greatly help the sharing of information, the bringing together of various agencies in one platform. But for the digital technologies to deliver that outcome, to deliver that potential, there needs to be a strong governance framework so that all of those that deliver data, all of those that access data, can be assured of their integrity, can be assured of their privacy, can be assured of clear information sharing protocols. So in some ways, while digital technologies should make it easier for us to have stronger traceability platforms and to be able to really manage food safety risks along the entire value chain, they also create new challenges, new regulatory challenges, and ultimately require stronger institutions. So all of this is what we're trying to do in the new China food safety project that was approved by the board at the end of March. In this $300 million project, we are trying to work with SAMR and MARA at the national as well as at the provincial level, with financial institutions that provide credits to farm enterprises and food producers to implement safer technology and production practices, and and we help to build the traceability platforms that are important for the data sharing, for the risk management, the risk mapping, and ultimately for the enforcement and monitoring of food safety risks. So we are very engaged in this agenda. This is an important agenda. It's an economically important and weighty agenda, but in the context of COVID-19, I think no one is left in any doubt that it is a fundamental agenda for human well-being and for our welfare going forward. So with that, let me wish you this morning a very good discussion. Again, apologies for not being with you, but I look forward to hearing the outcome from my colleagues. All the best. Thank you.
So Sita, that was a very nice introduction already for your presentation on the China Food Safety Project. Over to you. We can't hear you, Sita, so I think you need to turn on your microphone.
Sorry, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends. I'll try to set the context of today's discussion by trying to bring together some concepts which have actually helped in designing of the China Food Safety Project. Just bear with me. I have a few slides just for discussion and to set the tone of the presentation today. We will talk about why and how COVID-19 has redefined the entire food safety system in China. While the food systems in China have been transforming over the last decade or so, basically because of the challenges which are globally we have been seeing, but more particularly in China, especially because of the rising incomes, the dietary habits have changed. The people where they consume, what they consume, and how they consume food has totally changed. So it becomes a challenge for the food systems to respond. And the food production systems have also been challenged by the environmental supply limits. And most of the places, the climate change is affecting the ability to produce food, and then the future yields are at stake. And then growing urbanization is also trying to bring in new changes in terms of the food systems and how the food reaches into the cities and how and where it is distributed. And then what are the challenges of food management in the urban areas. When we come to COVID, we have seen that food systems have been in the middle of the pathway in several of the outbreaks and other challenges have surfaced in and around the food system, especially in production system in several places like pork plants or beef plants or the seafood plants. There have been reported cases of COVID-19 because of the contact materials or the pathways of COVID infection. Then healthy markets, again, the markets also have played a role in terms of creating environmental conditions where the risks get exacerbated because of the conditions in the market, because of the environmental health and hygiene conditions. But people have been trying to be very clever. They moved to new models of finding food and accessing food, especially because of the disruptions. People have moved over to e-commerce solutions, and e-commerce has provided large amounts of food available to the citizens who were affected by the lockdown. But since citizens were not very clear about the challenges of the food, who is producing their food, in what condition it is coming, whether it attracts any challenge in terms of the infectious disease or anything. So the people started looking for those vendors who are able to share more information on the way the food is produced. And that's the reason you'll find the living e-commerce, which has been a fad in China. Most of the vendors who have been able to show how the food is produced, in what environment and what goes into the food, they have been able to make a good business. So this means that we need to look at the food systems and the food safety assurance mechanisms in a slightly different way than the conventional mechanisms. Just now, Martin was mentioning about why at all this important agenda for all of us, basically because of the losses from the foodborne diseases. China is the country which has highest losses from the foodborne disease, which is around $30 billion. But if you try to add the occupational health of food system workers and other morbidities caused by the trans fat or toxic or other foodborne, waterborne pathogens, then perhaps the challenge is much greater. So there is a very good case where the governments have to invest, the countries have to invest in the food safety. Now, I'll just try to quickly help you to understand the agri-food system in China. I'm sure in most of the countries is also, it is as complex. Just the point here is we have the food produced in the farm. At the farm level, there are some challenges and the risks or hazards which enter into the food system, and they are managed, but somehow or other their residual risks are passed on to the next level. For example, here from the farm, the food goes to the production system, and along with that, whatever contaminants or toxins and polluted pollutants will move to the next stage. Like that, if you just try to see at each stage in the value chain, the new risks are added and the residual risk gets accumulated. And at some point in time, the consumers are affected directly because of the food what they consume has some sort of the pathogens or pollutants or contaminants, right? Now, added to that, the new discussion we are having on One Health, particularly about the interaction with the wildlife, is also one important agenda which we try to see. So basically, this is how the entire flow of hazards and control, the risk control mechanisms work in different stages of the value chain. But if you try to see who is responsible for managing these hazards, you will have a host of agencies. You have agencies which are looking at the forestry and the grassland and the wildlife systems. You have agencies which are looking at the agriculture and the rural affairs, and you have the public health agencies and the market regulation agencies which look at the food safety aspects. So unless and until all these agencies work in tandem, you will not be able to deliver fresh, nutritious, safe food to the citizens. And that is the reason we have been emphasizing on the One Health approach, which actually connects the different systems for an effective food safety management. So this slide was actually trying to help you to understand the complexity in the food system and how we can try to make good the available opportunities in terms of the science, the evidence and the analytical base what we have. Can we try to use it more strategically so that we can do it better? So most of the countries, in fact, in developing countries particularly, the food safety is seen to be an end product standard or end product safety. So most of the testing and supervision happens at the end product level. And if something happens there, there's a serious penalty to the person who is vending in the last. And there are ad hoc closures and other. So the compliance is very disruptive and does not really help in managing the food safety outcome. So if we try to take a risk-based approach, that means the systems are complex, the players are numerous, and we have human capacities, institutional capacities limited to reach out to every producer and then try to regulate. So that is the reason we are talking about the risk-based approach. So we derive the first of all, we can identify the hazards, based on that make assessment of the risk. Higher order risk, more important critical risk can be acted upon. The lower order risk, we can try to have alternate mechanisms to manage, then have a risk management system. But what is more important is, it is a science, it is technology, it is information. All the players need to understand the information in the same way. So that is the reason the risk communication is very, very important, to understand how the risks are defined, how they're managed, and how do we communicate to the citizens so that they are confident and they're part of the ecosystem which will promote the food safety. This is something which flows from there. So unless and until we have a creative tension between enterprise, the consumer, and the regulator, we will not be able to do a risk-based supervision and safety, food safety management. For that, the basic challenge what we have is information asymmetry, where the food is produced, in what conditions, what goes in, and how it is transmitted, what temperatures, what environment it is moving. So that is not very clear. So the hypothesis of this entire food safety project was, can we try to make every consumer a regulator? They demand good food, they demand nutritious and healthy food. So similarly, can we try to build the evidence mechanisms and transform the hierarchical regulation to a more facilitated one, where we create enabling regulation and help the enterprises to comply with the regulations through incentives, by promoting voluntary compliance, brand promotion, or assisting the enterprises which are not able to comply because they see enormous risk and opportunities in managing the food safety as per the regulation. Now, the project is about, it was sanctioned just in the month of March. It is a 400 million project. The project development objective is to improve the food safety management in at the national and targeted sub-national levels, and reduce the food safety risk in select value chains. So basically, as Martin was mentioning, the approach is about a value chain, because there is a very clear alignment of incentives of all the producers who are producing, processing, and distributing the food to the consumers. So we take that approach, and once we take that approach, then we start working with the enterprise, the regulators who are involved. So under the project, as was mentioned, State Administration for Market Regulation and Ministry of Agriculture have been part of this project. And we are working in 2 provinces of Guangdong and Shandong, and in some municipalities. So basically, the idea is, this is a complex project. It involves multiple sectors, it involves multiple domains, and it involves multiple jurisdictions. So ultimately, the food safety has to be driven at the lowest level by the cities and the municipalities, and then the townships. So that is the reason empowering them was the major objective of this particular project, and demonstrating how it works and how we can try to bring the different pieces, or the pieces of the puzzle together. The project had 4 components. One is on the institution building, basically strengthening the regulatory performance. And the second one is on the supervision systems at the grassroots level, at the provincial level. How do we recast the surveillance systems and use the information analytics for greater surveillance and risk communication systems? Then Martin again was mentioning about giving financial assistance to the enterprises so that they can increase their compliance, and of course the project implementation support. I'll quickly take you to the key innovations in this project. The project, in each of the components, there is a heavy digital innovation element there. We are talking about big data, use of artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques, so that we can try to use the information in a very creative manner, and then analytical analysis and evidence is going to drive the decisions. Similarly, use the laboratories and surveillance technologies, multi-product testing, multi-commodity, multi-contaminant testing, fast testing mechanisms. All those things are being tried out as pilots, and the evidence built would not only help China, but also the other developing countries. Similarly, in the investment solutions, We are talking about helping the enterprises make investments in clean, green, and blue technologies so that they can try to improve the modern food safety, improve the compliance with modern food safety regulation. Then finally, the insurance solutions. This is something very, very interesting. This actually is about creating a market-based ex-ante safety regulation which can supplement eminently the government's own supervision and surveillance mechanisms. So basically, we can try to use the early warning signals so that we can try to comprehensively cover the risks of the value chain. So the last slide is about what is a digital architecture looking like. So this is the value chain. In each of the stages, you have digital components there to either improve the production, productivity, or the information. Then you have a traceability system in the testing methods, which are all accompanied. They're all on the IT platforms. And then you have the labs which are networked. They all feed into a big data platforms. The big data is going to throw up the analytics, identify more risky enterprises and profiles, and then based on that also try to provide some sort of alerts. And then the governance system will also interact with the consumers and then try to connect. So this is overall digital architecture. In fact, every component is wired component. The idea is how do we use the technologies to support the entire food safety management system. I stop at that basically because we have the four presenters who are going to delve deeper into that. But one question would remain that, okay, this is happening in China, how far it is replicable? What is the benefit to the other developing countries? So basically the idea is whatever we are learning in China, so we can try to sieve the lessons and appropriately contextualize them into the developing countries and then try to see how we can help the developing countries to manage the zoonotic diseases. Or how can we try to improve the exports of high quality and safe food? How can we manage the antimicrobial resistance? Or how can we try to green the agriculture and take care of the climate change? So there are a host of lessons which will come from this particular project, which can inform the other developing countries. I stop at that. Thank you so much. And I look forward for the questions and I can try to respond as and when we see in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sita. That was really an excellent example of how we really strengthen the food safety system, taking the example of China and looking at how digital technologies are going to be very critical to really improve the effectiveness of the food safety systems. So thank you very much. So let me now turn to DDG Shen Wen for his presentation. Over to you, sir.
好，我开始我的发言。尊敬的主持人，各位与会代表，我是深圳市市场监督管理局的副局长王生文，非常荣幸参加今天的讨论会并做发言。我们市场监督管理局承担着全深圳市的食品安全保障的职能。今天我发言的题目是数字化支撑食品质量和安全提升。首先，请允许我介绍我所在的城市深圳。深圳是中国改革开放的窗口和标杆城市，刚刚度过了它的40岁的生日。40年来，这座城市的人口从30万增长到2400万。GDP 从1.69亿人民币增加到2.77万亿人民币。那么我们这座城市每天需要的蔬菜是7100吨，水果2300吨，肉、蛋和水产品是6200吨，粮食接近5500吨。但是深圳市仅有耕地 5.57万亩，因此100%的粮食，超过95%的食用农产品和85%的食品需要依赖外来输入供应，食品安全监管的风险是我们面临的一大挑战。信息化可以显著提升食品安全监管的效能，这是我们这么多年来已经具备的共识。10多年来，深圳先后启动了食品安全民生工程和食品安全战略工程，投入的资金接近100亿元人民币，从食品安全监管的基础设施、体制机制、产业政策、品牌形成等多个方面，积极打造让市民放心和满意的食品安全城市。下面我从数字化奠定正品技术基础、信息化构建产业监管体系、透明度提升监管效能3个方面，简单介绍我们所做的一些工作。我们数字化奠定正品的技术基础。我们从2016年开始研究正品工程。这个工程简单来说，就是以更高要求的自愿性团体标准为基础，通过合格评定手段，打造一个让市民广泛认可的城市品牌。我们根据市民菜篮子的需要，已经完成了标准体系500项，团体标准356项，配套了541份评价文件。目前共有131个企业的514个产品被评定为正品。我们的正品基地已经覆盖全中国的23个省区、96个市县，品种包括果、菜、奶、肉、禽、蛋等18个品类。目前企业参与积极，市民较为满意，食品安全和供给得到了比较好的保障。在这项工作中，信息化与数字化发挥了重要作用。国际化是深圳发展的一大方向。食品安全监管的基础是基础标准，全面了解和掌握全球的标准动态，是开展食品安全风险评估、风险管理和风险交流的重要基础。2016年，我们启动了全球食品安全技术法规与标准动态数据库的建设。目前，这个数据库已经对全球36个国际组织、国家和地区的近1.4万份标准进行了分析和数字化，指标参数200万余条，实现了对指标差异的一键式比对，极大提高了我们标准研制的准确性，工作效率提升10倍以上，并使得我们有能力主动参与到国家和国际的标准化活动中来。这2年，我们依托这个数据库参与的国际标准数量已经突破了10个。第二，信息化构建产业监管体系。试点农业种植基地的动态监管 我们运用物联网、5G 等技术手段，建立联动预警机制，实现对种植基地的事前、事中、事后全链条监管。试点基地的农产品在种植之初上传种植计划，物联网设备事中监控上传数据，并实施预警。农产品上市销售附码展示过程信息，试点基地监控信息接入政府智能指挥中心，实施远程监管，实现农贸市场数字化智能监管。全深圳市335家农贸市场和20家农批市场完成改造193家，推广智慧计量系统在市场中的应用，逐步为商户配备智能秤、信息屏和网络配套服务，完善信息公示、交易溯源、联网监管3大主要功能，形成档口、农贸市场、区级、市级管理网络，实现农贸市场信息网络化、工作规范化、管理现代化，实现餐饮环节可视化动态监管。全深圳市11627家学校食堂和200平米以上的餐饮单位实现了互联网加民厨酿造，借助人工智能及大数据分析，针对垃圾桶未加盖、未按规定穿戴工艺工帽等9种餐饮经营者违规场景建立模型，通过系统自动巡检、精准识别抓取，移动端及时推送，整改后自主上传整改报告，形成线上监管到线下整改到线上报告的业务闭环，实现政企互动、监管互通的高效良性互动。第3，透明度，提升监管效能，加强实时公开政府的监管信息。我们构建了实验室定量检测与现场快速检测相结合的政府检测网络，政府抽样检测和企业自我检测结果实时公开。2019年农产品抽检覆盖率，我们居全中国首位，达到每1000人9.36批次，完成了覆盖全市74个街道的一街一车一室工程，每个街道辖区至少配备1台快检车、1间快检室，及时开展食品和农产品的快速检测，及时发现和有效处置食品安全的风险。基于移动互联网技术建成政务通 APP， 我们的一线监管人员通过系统实现业务全流程移动端的办理，监管人员无需携带纸质文本，通过手机操作即可完成监管任务，实现一次录入、一次上传、一键审核、一键归档。同时发挥我们的大数据优势，收集许可证照、监管监测、抽样检验、执法办案等信息，对食品经营单位建立一户一达，消费者进店通过扫描桌贴二维码即可实现食品安全信息的一键可查。信息交流平台营造社会共治氛围， 我们加强了食品安全风险交流平台的建设，构建起形式多样、内容丰富、专业权威的食品药品安全风险交流宣传资料库，内容涵盖高风险食品、食品添加剂、食源性疾病、食品安全谣言解读等多个实用主题库。数据库包括国内外各类食品安全风险交流宣传资料2800余份，宣传制品近500余套，多媒体资料包括科普文章、微信文案、微博文案、科普视频等等，近800份。市民和社会各个方面都可以通过我们市场监督管理局的官网、微信和微博等方式免费获取。这是我们深圳这几年来在我们推动我们的数字化、信息化，来构建我们食品安全监管体系的一些初步的做法和经验。那么在这条道路上深圳作为中国一座改革开放的城市，将在食品安全监管这方面呢，不断的先行示范，为我们全深圳市民的食品安全提供有效的保障，而且要为我们全中国的食品安全监管先行示范提供宝贵的经验。我的发言就到这里，谢谢大家。
Thank you very much, DDG Shen Wen. That was a really very, I think, interesting presentation and how you have implemented improving the food safety systems in Shenzhen. I think it's a role model for many countries on the actually how to do it and how to implement it. Working with the private sector on the certification, on the traceability, but also on the communication with consumers. Thank you very much. So let me now turn to Patrick Jonason for his presentation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Jonason. I'm the Director for Public Policy at GS1. GS1, we're an international standards development organization. We have offices in around 115 countries and around 2 million user companies around the world. In the Asia Pacific region, we have offices in 22 different countries and territories. First of all, I must say I'm very impressed by the presentation I just heard from Shenzhen. It's really inspiring to see how they are leveraging technology as well as collaboration to address food safety concerns, and it's really inspiring for me to see these developments happening. And I hope that when travel rules and things allow, I can come and visit in Shenzhen and look at it firsthand. So today in my presentation, I will focus on traceability and the aspects of interoperability and supply chain standards. Traceability is a very timely topic. It's a wide range of regulations are coming out in China and elsewhere. And we're moving towards stricter traceability requirements. And as you may know, there are also currently fresh talks in Codex about the development of new guidance on traceability and product tracing. With this presentation, I hope I can put the topic into the right context and show some examples of how standardization, the area where I work, and interoperability can be achieved. The standards I will refer to here are globally aligned ISO standards that are sector agnostic, technology agnostic, and most importantly, already in use by the business community. So if you can go back one slide. So what you're seeing here is a simplified image, obviously, but it's still clear that without any connection to share data between the stakeholders, All we have here is internal traceability within one company or within their premises, with limited ability of sharing information between supply chain stakeholders. This may be the case in many supply chains that we see today. And it's important to note that there is a wide range of internal traceability solution in the market. They may be used and may be developed for specific purposes, solving specific company demands, which is fine when they function in a closed ecosystem. But what we are working towards here is interoperability in the way of identifying traceable items using global data standards, and to achieve interoperability between supply chain parties. They can rely on supply chain standards to share information without even knowing each other. So if you want to share information outside the four walls of a company, either with trading partners or for regulatory automation, sharing with the government, there has to be interoperability. And standardization is foundational for interoperability. So now if we can go to the next slide. So we don't want a situation where all supply chain stakeholders have their own internal systems, like in the previous slides. That adds overall cost, complications, as well as significant risk. We need to move to a reality where we achieve end-to-end traceability. And end-to-end traceability, this is also, for example, what they are talking about in Codex in their meeting today. We need to move to a reality where we achieve this end-to-end traceability through standardized identification and sharing of data with interoperability among supply chain stakeholders. And please note that even though this graphic obviously doesn't include government and consumers, they are certainly also very important stakeholders here in today's supply chains. But I will get into that in a little while. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So needs evolve over time depending on the latest food crisis, markets demands, as well as regulations. And businesses use traceability for different needs in different markets and for different product categories. The latest technologies coexist today together with legacy systems that have been in place for a long time. The latest technologies also contribute to a dynamic environment where things are changing and evolving over time. But what we would like to keep as a foundational part, even if it's a legacy system or if it's a modern, be it a blockchain or an AI or a big data platform, is that you need to have standards as a foundation, which is the foundation for interoperability, which means that systems can talk to each other. So if we go to the next slide. So here you see our system of standards. If you look at the bottom portion of this slide, you will see some of the benefits of the interoperability that we have. This includes traceability, it includes recall, and product pedigree information, to name but a few. These are aspects that are extremely important both for food safety and for consumer trust. If you look in the middle, we also see the different data carriers that can be used, and this is close to our heart, of course, since we are working a lot with barcodes and QR codes and EPC tags in our standards system. So you can see here everything from an EAN UPC linear 1D barcode, you can see a QR code, and you can see a data matrix 2D code, as well as RFID data carriers. These are applied as needed by industry or as required by regulatory requirements. And then at the top, you can of course see an example supply chain. Here we have added some levels of complexity, and I guess this is more similar to a real supply chain that you will have in real life. And at the end, importantly, you will also have a consumer who is very keen on understanding more about the food product that they are purchasing or that they are consuming. Next slide, please. So technology should ideally be enabling businesses to reach more customers and suppliers and to develop new products and improve old products. But it should also be an enabler for compliance. And I think that's an important point here. With governments recognizing automated and tech-enabled regulatory compliance, or what we like to call regulatory automation. And I do believe this is some of the aspects we've seen in the previous presentation. In most cases, the challenges I have experienced is for the government to be able to consume the traceability data that is generated by private sector and to use it for regulatory compliant purposes. And I will go into more detail here on that. So when we look at the application of traceability, there are essentially three different demands that are in place. These are from government, from business and consumers. In this example here from a company called PGS in Australia, we will see how a technical solution that embeds the GS1 identification is able to address the different requirements from the different stakeholders. The challenge is that when the importing country system requires traceability data from the exporting countries, the exchange of data should, to the maximum possible extent, be based on global data standards to ensure the correct and efficient flow of data between systems. Failing to establish common data standards for key traceability data, such as product identification, shipment identification, provenance statements, etc., this will lead to cost and complexity and can impact the smooth flow of international cross-border shipments. What this company has managed to do here is achieve cross-border traceability and automation of compliance, while the solution also gives consumers the demanded information for assurance of authenticity. So if we go to the next slide, you will see in more detail how the system is built. What we see here is how PGS worked together with the Chinese border control agencies and the exporter of milk, which is an Australian company, to establish a system where data is shared from business to government that automatically builds in trust in the system and enables cross-border trade that is fully compliant with the import and other requirements of China. This level of collaboration is very rare, but it's always been something that we are aiming for when engaging with government, especially when we work with border agencies and food safety authorities. As this built-in trust both makes border risk management more effective and makes the export supply chain more predictable for the company and builds in a high level of trust among the consumers, which is also indicated by the fact that the consumers are willing to pay a higher price for a product with assurance of traceability. And this is very important incentive for a company that wants to implement a system like this. So if we look at this slide, this is another example of how GS1 standards are used. This is the Shanghai municipality platform where they are able to consume GS1 product code as well as batch number. And the platform allows for companies' internal traceability systems to connect directly, making them interoperable by using the same ID system for the food products. In China, GS1 standards have been used in food traceability by local market supervision departments in many regions, including Fujian, Zhejiang, Shanghai, Shandong, Guangdong, Jiangsu, Gansu, Ningxia, Yunnan, Shenzhen, Xiamen, and Shunde, to name but a few. If we go to the next slide, which is my last slide. So to conclude, we believe that robust global standards are proven solutions for collaboration. Standards can enable innovation, not hinder it. Implementing standards throughout supply chains reaps great benefits compared to working with proprietary, non-standardized processes. We need to make sure to cover all relevant levels of interoperability, including the humble identification schemes, labels, barcodes, and tags. This sounds very mundane, but if you don't have the foundations in terms of basic identification of food products in supply chains, it's very difficult to build a system on top of that. We need to choose the standards that fit the business and operational context best of industry, and of course, to do this, collaboration is key. So with that, I thank you all for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. Another excellent presentation. I think the key messages are food safety and traceability have to go together. And for this, you need very good standards and have these standards also and the information digitized and make them talk to each other in an through interoperability through the whole value chain. I think we're really now getting down to the practical side of implementing food safety and traceability. So thank you for that. It was a very excellent presentation. Let me now turn to Mael, who's our next speaker. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dina. Hello, everyone. My name is Mel from Swiss Re. I'm very honored to have the opportunity to share Swiss Re's experience on the agricultural value chain from like risk and also insurance perspective. Next page, please. So in the next 10 minutes, I would like to share a little bit, starting from how public-private partnership support agricultural value chain, what Swiss Re has explored so far, and also by leveraging or using a real case, what Swiss Re has been done by leveraging the data analytics to support food security topic. Last but not least, is our current exploration on the food safety topic. Next page, please. A quick introduction about Swiss Re. So Swiss Re is a world leading reinsurance company. So our headquarters is based in Zurich. So we are more than 150 years reinsurance company. So globally, we have more than 115,000 employees across the world. So in Asia, we have an office in Beijing, Tokyo, Singapore, Hong Kong, Mumbai, Australia, and Bangalore to serve all the clients in the Asia Pacific. As you can see in the screen, actually, Swiss Re's vision is really to make the world more resilient by leveraging our risk knowledge. So we started, we have been supporting the insurance industry for hundreds of years. So basically our clients is the insurance industry. So we help the insurance company to really transfer the low frequency, high severity risk. In the meantime, to also support the industry to incubate the new risk pool and also to narrow the protection gap. Next page, please. Next one, please. Next one, please. So basically, from the whole agriculture industry perspective, we observe actually there are a few very important elements when we look at the agriculture value chain. Starting from a growing population, I think is very big challenge and a problem, and also growing the energy and the consumption, and also with the crop production price is going up. These are lots of a challenge for different stakeholders as well. In the meantime, we also see there are many investments are flowing into the rural space. So that's also a positive element to our rural industry. Last but not least, the insurance is also play a very important role to support the farmer, the corporate, also farm and the government, starting from food security topic and then move to the food safety topic. Next page, please. I think everyone is very clear about the PPP partnership kind of business model, but for us from insurance industry, we do a deep dive to evaluate what will be the best way to really support the overall agricultural value chain. So basically, from the government perspective, definitely, as Mr. Huang and also Patrick has shared already. So agriculture is a very complex industry. There are many different stakeholders in this value chain. So government support is very important. But if we look at the whole agricultural value chain across the whole world, actually different countries are at a different stage and the challenges are different. So basically, there's no kind of recipe can solve all the problem. So we have to do that, see that case by case. But no matter how, we see insurance will be a very important risk transfer tool to help the farmer and also government to solve the challenge. It's basically because from the insurance company perspective, there's a large amount of agency located in different places to support farmer to do the service, and also this is something that government can better leverage the private market to better serve the rural market as well. Next page, please. When we look at agriculture insurance industry, we look at this whole industry into four main stakeholders. Partly the public authorities support is very important. For example, starting from food security perspective, I think the Chinese government has been support the agriculture industry in the past few years. Very good track record. I think the China agriculture insurance market now has turned to be the largest agriculture insurance market in the world already. So that's is very support from the government as well. In the meantime, the crop insurer is also very important role to really help the government, help the farmer to really professionalize the risk management and also do a better risk management for the farmer as well. From farmer perspective, definitely, with the support from insurance, farmer will have a better and stronger confidence to do their own business. And also, if something goes wrong, they have a good money to recover their own business as well. And as everyone knows, agriculture is also a very high-risk industry. So basically, with the support from a global reinsurer, with a good diversification globally of the risk, the reinsurance company can really make a very strong support to a specific market for narrow the protection gap. Next page, please. So for the next case, I would like to use a real case which Swiss Re has developed in the past few years to demonstrate how data analytics can support the food security topic. So this will be a good example as a reference, and hopefully, in the near future, we will be able to also leverage the data analytics to better support the food safety topic as well. So basically, in 2019, Swiss Re has developed this platform is Swiss Re Agriculture Insurance Risk Management Platform. So this platform has been received the first prize award from Singapore FinTech Festival last year as well. So it's also a very good recognition from the industry. Basically, the platform provides two services. One is the historical risk map and also ongoing risk monitoring service. So by leveraging the precipitation, temperature, soil moisture, and DVI data, so the platform can give the farmer and also government a on-time visualization about the loss severity in a particular farmland, in order to help the farmer and also government better manage the risk at the ground, or better do a better risk management for their crop as well. Next page, please. In the meantime, in addition to the risk management, we also extend the service to a risk transfer part, which is the insurance product we have developed. Basically, by leveraging the weather data and also the loss data on the ground, so the platform can provide product innovation in an automatic way for the weather index product. As shared, by leveraging different weather data, the platform are able to really provide one-stop service. In the past, I think when we design a weather index product, it takes like weeks or months. But by having the platform, I think to complete one product is just by a few steps in a few minutes. So this really largely improved the product design efficiency for the insurance industry, and also ultimately to provide different variety of insurance product for the farmer and the government as well. Next page, please. So just a quick overview about the platform. Basically, this is how the platform look like. So basically, the insurance company have a good visualization on the loss volatility, and also based on the government or farmers' need on the trigger point, including the return period and also the budget they have to design a product in the automatic way. Next page, please. So this is just a quick summary about the feedback from the industry. Actually, after implementing this platform, I think in China, including the largest insurance company in China, are also using the platform. So this largely improved the product development efficiency a lot. So the efficiency has been improved by almost 90%. And also, there's almost about 15% additional gain for this kind of improving efficiency by reducing the loss adjustment expense. And also the insurance company's loss ratio has been also improved as well by more professionalized product design. Next page, please. So speaking of that, that's what Sui has explored from food security perspective. And in the meantime, we also, extend our footprint to the food safety topic. Next page, please. When we look at food safety, I think with the good support from the government, like Mr. Huang just introduced, that's also give us lots of confidence. And also with the new technology in place, like a GS1, which Patrick just mentioned. So I would say insurance industry will have a much more confidence to develop a ecosystem to better support the food safety topic, especially from insurance industry perspective. I think just from business model and also alignment interest perspective, insurance industry will be a very good stakeholder to provide service. It's just simply because if we can, insurance company can enable the industry do a better risk management, and ultimately the loss ratio for the insurance company will be lower. So there is a commercial motivation for the insurance industry to do a better, to support risk management. And in the meantime, because the insurance industry has lots of data about the risk, so by translating the data into a good risk management service, that's naturally insurance industry is able to support as well. When we look at the data analytics, we look at this three. Sorry, last page. Last page. No, next one, last one. Last page, sorry. Yes, this one. So I'll just focus on the what part. So basically, as you can see, we have 5 pillars to support food safety topic, starting from providing the analytical awareness part. So by leveraging the data we can collect from the market, the insurance industry will be able to provide risk scoring to help the regulator and also the entity to have a self-awareness on the risk level. And in the meantime, by leveraging the ongoing data and also empirical data, insurance industry can also provide an early alerting kind of system to help the corporate to do a better risk management. In the meantime, by having all this data, naturally, we can also design a certain kind of risk management framework and also provide advice for the corporate. Last but not least, naturally, the insurance industry will carry the responsibility of the risk transfer. Once something goes wrong, the insurance industry can pay the money to the corporate in order to help the corporate to rebuild their kind of existing operation. So with that, I think, I would say insurance industry will play a very critical role. We have been exploring this kind of concept in Guangdong Province in the past few months as well. So I think in Guangdong Province, like Mr. Huang just introduced, we have very good base. So the current infrastructure is very solid. And now next step is really, we need to really consolidate different set of data into the way of a better, of designing a better risk management framework. Next page, please. So far, we have been partnering with our insurance company, which is PICC in Guangdong Province, to explore different kind of approach, including the risk management part and also product design part. So far, our exploration is really just by using the loss compensation scheme based on the detection rate to give the payout. So basically, the compensate for the cost of recycling and disposal when the tax rate is unqualified, and the insurance rate is determined based on the tax rate data for the given area, and also the specific variety of the either crop or aquaculture stuff. Sorry, I haven't finished last point. And also for the risk management part, again, by leveraging the different IoT set of data, we'll be able really to trace and also develop an analytical approach and build up the ecosystem to support better risk management for the food safety topic. That's all from my side, Dina.
Thank you very much, Wiley. As we all know, agriculture is a very risky business. So I was very happy to see that you're already providing insurance at the production level through the index-based weather insurance, but now you're even pushing the frontier and now going into providing insurance also for food safety. So I think everybody will be watching and learning from you how we can really implement this and maybe scale this up. further. Now, let me hand it over now to Jinyu for his presentation. Over to you.
好的，主持人好，尊敬的各位领导，各位专家，早上好，下午好，或者说晚上好。我是平安银行总行的邓俊义，具体负责的是物联网、区块链、AI 以及如何利用金融科技驱动产品创新相关的工作。很高兴今天有机会汇报平安银行对本次世行涉农授信以及食品安全项目的理解。那么也相信平安银行一定能做好对世行项目的一个承接和执行。本次我汇报的题目是 ABIoT 助力食品安全。那么它同时也是平安银行衔接世行项目的一个能力的展示。其中 ABIoT 那么分别代表的是 AI、Blockchain 和那个物联网。首先我们来看看平安银行的业务情况。OK， 下一页。再下一页。那么平安银行是中国首家公开上市的全国性股份制商业银行，总部也是位于中国的深圳。那么到2020年末的话，总资产是44685亿人民币，净利润是289亿。那么拥有100家分行以及1057家营业网点。当然，我们平安银行的背后是平安集团。平安集团是全球保险集团市值的第1位，那么在保险品牌排行也是第1位。总体来看的话，next one， 下一页，谢谢。OK， 总体来看，就是平安有2大核心的优势。第一个就是我们的综合金融，第二个就是我们的科技引领。那么以2020年为例，大家可以看到，重点金融科技领域，我们的专利数排名都是在全球的前列的。同时的话呢，我们也可以看到，我们拥有8大研究院、57个实验室以及大量的科技从业人员。下一页，谢谢。那么在金融科技领域的话，物联网，上一页，谢谢。在金融科技领域，物联网、区块链、AI、大数据 ，OK， 这些都是平安的核心技术能力，在业界也处于领先的一个地位，并且这以上所列示的能力，基本上都是平安自行研发，具备独立的知识产权和专利。那么以物联网为例，我们打造了星云物联网平台，那么目前已经横跨5大主流行业，支持20多个场景和业务产品的落地，实现了237万设备的一个接入。同时，它支持的实体经济规模也超过了1100亿人民币。那么在区块链领域，我们可以看到，我们是自主可控的那个设计和实施，并且拥有561件区块链的专利，而且具备超过6年的实施经验。好，下一页。下一页，谢谢。需要特别指出的是，平安银行在2020年12月发射了平安1号卫星，那么它也成为了中国发射首颗金融物联网卫星的银行。上一页 ，sorry。那么这颗卫星它也是能够帮助平安在整个星云物联计划中去推进它的天基物联网部分的建设和研究。OK， 下一页。好，再下一页。那么在物联网这一块的话，平安是有一个星云物联计划的。在这个物联计划里面，平安银行探索去构建上有卫星星座去支持天基物联，那么地下有星云物联网平台去接入100万级乃至1000万级的物联网设备，中间我们通过 PC、APP、OpenAPI 去封装银行的金融产品， 那么为千万级的互联网的 B 端用户去提供金融 SaaS 服务以及非金融的 SaaS 服务，最终去实现客户经营的线上化、模型化和自动化。同时呢，最终能够承载万亿级的供应链和数字金融资产的一个落地。OK， 下一页。在新云物联计划的支持下面，我们还依托区块链、大数据、AI， 那么去完善供应链的金融服务。很重要的一点，如我下角所示，我们期待的是信息流、资金流、物流、商流的4流合一。OK， 下一页。对我们而言，新云物联网平台的核心能力优势体现在6个方面，分别是中台的组件化开发、分布式架构、边缘计算、Open API、区块链、人工智能，他们在各自的专业领域发挥技术价值。OK， 下一页。在核心能力的支持下面，那么我们也设计了一个3链同构的技术体系，分别是产业链、供应链和数字孪生链，对应的是左上角这个三角形。在数字孪生链，我们把它定义成物联网链，它可以帮助银行与企业建立可信的一个数据纽带，进而去支持银行的风险防控和产品创新。从左右下角来看，实际上我们的物联网能力体现在2个层面。那么第一个，它可以帮助银行做好金融授信中的风险防控；第二个，它可以将物联网监控的数据以及我们的物联网应用向我们的客户去开放，帮助他们提升生产管理的一个能力。OK， 下一页。那么第9页的话，实际上是我们整个目前的物联网平台的实际成果的一个展示。截止到目前，我们的设备接入量是237万。OK， 下一页。下面我们通过几个案例来看一下平安银行的业务创新能力和技术优势。首先，我们是与一家核心企业合作的生猪养殖袋，这个项目走的是银行的创新委员会的创新项目评审机制，纳入沙箱进行管理。所以说，我们的项目创新评审机制是可以帮助创新项目快速上线的。在这个体系里面，我们用区块链去串联生猪养殖行业的各个环节，包括农户、核心企业、运输、销售终端、银行、保险等等，并按照约定的权限设计去实现数据的可信共享。在这个案例里面，一个我们是实现了所有信息的开放透明，特别是养殖经营信息可以为银行金融提供风险预警。第二，这些透明共享的数据可以帮助各环节实现生产经营的风险预警，比如说育种的类型、防疫检验标志等等，也支持我们消费者在终端实现食品安全的溯源。OK， 下一页。第二个案例是我们和奶企一起合作并设计的面向它的上下游的金融创新产品，包括奶企核心企业它上游的牧场的养殖性贷款，以及下游就是销售那个牛奶的经销商的经销商贷款。在这个案例中，我们强调的是基于生物穿戴设备以及其他物联网设备对奶牛的数量、体征、运动行为进行识别，对奶牛的产奶情况进行收集。一是可以评估企业的生产经营能力，进而判断还款能力；第二个，可以将产奶的情况上链，支持终端用户的产品溯源。同时，过程中我们也用到了 AI 和大数据，比如通过奶牛的花纹来分辨奶牛的个体。那么在这个过程中，我们也可以看到，包括奶企的核心企业、上游牧场、下游经销商以及提供服务的银行、保险，都会在一个联盟链里面。可以实现数据的可信共享、确权和溯源，并在后续为市行对资金和项目的监管以及其他金融监管提供可信的数据支撑。那么这里有个菜单，那图中的银行可以是平安银行，那么保险可以是平安保险。作为集团旗下的2家专业公司，那么我们可以在内部顺畅的协同起来，为整个产业链上的客户提供以客户为中心的综合金融服务，这个也是我们的优势。那么下一页，农业种植也是类似，这个是我们银行乡村振兴办公室的案例。 帮助农村实现田间地头以及大棚的环境数据采集、农作物生产情况的采集，去指导种植，并建立食品溯源和销售体系，帮助我们的农户把农产品卖出去。过程中，我们的平安银行与平安保险也是协同去提供金融服务。那么上面3个案例是平安银行基于金融科技创新供应链产品中的部分场景。从平安银行的角度来看的话，我们的创新场景和金融科技的运用远不止如此。下一页。所以我们认为啊，平安银行完全有能力向世行去申请那个项目合作，同时呢，也可以在项目中做好食品的安全溯源。我们列几个关键的能力。第一个是我们的战略愿景，我们期望的是金融和科技、金融和生态的结合，最终实现产业和金融的协同发展。第二个是我们的综合金融，那么我们集团是金融业务的全牌照的集团，特别是银行和保险的合作，可以在整个农产品的生产、加工、运输过程中提供综合性的一个服务和综合性的一个定价。第三个是科技引领，如前面的材料汇报中所列示的区块链、物联网、AI、大数据这些技术，我们在业内都是牢牢占据头部地位，并且真正做到了和实际场景产品创新相结合。第四个是我们的成功案例，在农业养殖领域，我们的肉牛、奶牛、生猪的养殖，以及在农业种植领域，在乡村振兴的各种服务领域，我们都是有实际的案例，并且能够快速去总结、提炼和提升我们自身的服务。最后的 Next one， 下一页，谢谢。那么最后引用我们对公业务发展策略作为总结汇报，也就是我们一直在坚持的创新驱动、数字经营、产业互联。那么我的汇报到此结束，再次感谢各位领导和专家，谢谢。
Thank you very much, Junyi. I think it was really fascinating to learn about the Ping An experience on how you're using technologies such as IoT, blockchain, and big data to improve supply chain financial services. So that wraps up our presentations. I see that we've had some active conversations in the chat between some of the presenters and the speakers. But let me see, are there any questions that have remained unanswered? I'm going to rely now on our organizers, Vivek, to kind of direct me to the questions that have not yet been responded to. Vivek or Parmesh?
So Dina, I'll come in now so quickly because we don't have time, unfortunately, because I think the presenters did not keep time. We lost about 10 minutes basically because they were very excited in what they were presenting. So, but I think the questions which clearly are about, what happens to this data? Where does this data stay? And how do you enable that? What are the primary sources for these data analytics? What happens to that data? So there are some questions on what happens to data, and then also question of also that how can this data be used then to leverage some kind of public good actions like early warning and all that. So there's a lot of data being collected by insurance players, by the Shenzhen province itself and others. So does this data talk to each other? Is there interoperability of these systems to take decisions, or it is still in individual silos with each other? How does this get integrated? I don't know who is going to answer that question, but that's a very important question. Yeah.
I think we can ask all the speakers to talk about the data.
And if they can ask one more question, if they can answer, is that what are the enablers and what it requires to build capacity for such a data-driven system? So one is this data question, second is the enablers, and third is how do you build capacity? These are three kind of cross-cutting questions.
Okay, maybe I will let the speakers choose which question they want to answer. One on the data issue and data privacy, interoperability, and what was the third one, Parmesh? On
there's one on the enablers. What are the enablers? And the third one is more on the capacity. They should pick only one question and not answer all the three, because we don't have time for that, and they should get only 2 minutes for answering their question.
Okay.
That's it.
So on the capacity building, now let me start then from the last speaker, Junyi, and we'll work ourselves backwards. Junyi, you first.
这个问题是吧 ？OK， 我看到就是里面有一个是关于我这边的一个问题，也就是我们最后在材料中汇报的3链同构的一个产中协同的技术支撑方案。那么我把我们这个方案也大致介绍一下吧。那个3链同构实际上是平安，从我们来看的话是平安提出的一个产中协同的一个技术支撑的和解决方案。那么原来的话，它是起源于我们的这个双链，就是供应链和区块链这2块。那么只是对它进行了一个丰富和延伸，加入了我们的数字孪生链，也就是物联网链。那么通过区块链、产业链和物联网链，我们期望是帮助银行和企业去建立它的一个可信的数字纽带，并且基于这些可信的数据去创新我们的金融服务产品，提升我们的风控的能力。那么在材料的第11页，那么我们也对它进行了一个描述，可能大家可以回放去看。那么第一个就是我们认为区块链去结合产业链，可以帮助我们对产业链上的数字资产进行一个确权拆分。
You can keep your answer short because we're running out of time and we need to let the other presenters also give some responses. Yeah, we maybe wrap up in 1 minute. Thank you.
没问题，很快。那么第2个，区块链和数字孪生链和物联网的结合的话，可以实现业务场景的一个穿透。那么第3个的话，就是物联网和产业链相结合的话，也可以去做一些数据融合和关联佐证的事情。那么总而言之的话，我们是期望3链同构能够在银行、保险以及我们合作的平台客户之间形成一个数据的协同，去帮助我们评估客户资质、识别风险、发现机会、提供综合服务。那么这个技术体系在平安银行内部实际上已经大量使用了，比如我们的大宗商品的抵押贷款、车辆抵押贷款、牧场的养殖贷款以及工业设备的抵押贷款等等方面。好，谢谢。
Thank you very much. Let me turn to Mile. Go ahead.
Yep, I'll choose the data privacy topic. This will be a very important one. I think when we talk about data, there are lots of different dimensions, different granularity of the data. So what insurance industry is really not the raw data. It's the data that can fit for the risk management purpose. So with that, I think with the support from the government, also the third-party service provider, that can really filter to the data site as a granularity of relatively low, but fit for the risk management purpose. I think that can solve the problem. Secondly, is we can leverage the technology, basically like the federal learning kind of approach can really set a very strong firewall. So both sides will not be able to get access to each other's data, but in the meantime, they can share the data delivery and result as well.
Thank you very much. Patrick, yeah?
Yeah, quickly, just on the enablers as well as build capacity. What I like to do when starting work on implementing a traceability system in a country or with a company is to understand that it needs to support the business operations of the company. They still need to make money to be able to operate as a company. So we need to make sure that we are addressing a business problem when we are implementing these solutions, and by doing that, add value to the company. So one example is, for example, farmers that want to export and they need to implement traceability because they can see real value in exporting the produce because they can sell it at a higher price. So that's a very simple example, but that's a key issue that always needs to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. DTG Wang, yeah.
好，我就这个数据共享的有关问题啊，谈一下我们中国啊，包括我们深圳的做法。应该说我们中国啊，对于食品安全监管的信息应该有完整的法律法规的制度设计。那么我们食品安全监管当中的获取的一些信息啊，属于政府的信息。那么政府信息呢，咱们有政府信息公开的一个法律。政府信息公开的条例， 那么也就是说，在食品安全监管当中的一些公共信息，我们是依法主动的对外公开的。那么也就是说，任何有需要的人士都可以通过公开的渠道可以去查询。这里面包括我们在食品安全监管方面，包括我们的企业的经营许可信息，包括我们的政府的监管信息，包括我们的行政处罚信息，包括政府进行检测的一些信息。这些信息按照中国的法律规定，都应该对社会公开。那么这些信息都可以通过公开的渠道进行查询，所以是没有任何障碍的。那么第二个就是在这些政府公开的信息之外，那么可能涉及到企业的一些商业的秘密或者个人隐私的信息。那么这一块我们中国的法律也有非常完备的规定，那必须是实施严格的保护。那么这种情况下，对于企业自身或者通过它的授权，那么是可以进行查询的。那么除了企业自身和授权查询之外，那么我们都是严格保密的。我想这一块呢，这个信息的另外就是对于一些没有公开的信息，那么有需要的人士可以通过申请政府信息公开的方式来获取。那么这一块一般我们法律规定强调就是要有一定的必要性和关联性。如果涉及到经营者和个人的隐私，必须要权利人的同意，那么这个信息可以通过申请的方式可以获取。那么所有的我们政府形成的监管信息除了按规定对外公开和保密以外，在我们政府内部如果作为监管的用途，我们是可以实行充分的信息共享的。你比如说政府的监管涉及到各个部门涉及到我们农业农村涉及到我们这个食品安全监管，乃至于其他包括我们的公安部门等等这些相关的部门，这些信息是可以进行共享的。而且在我们现在目前，我们中国也是大力的推进电子政务的建设，推进数字政府的建设。那么现在所有的政府信息在政府内部之间都是可以实行充分共享的。当然，如果要对外公开，就一定要遵循相关的法律和规定该公开的主动公开，那么该保密的应该保密，该通过申请公开的方式，那么就通过申请公开的方式获取。谢谢。
Thank you very much. And finally, Sita, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll not take much time, but the enablers question, right? So world over, the private sector and the consumer innovations have always been ahead of the public sector innovation. But the question, I think, is more about the food safety system, which is a system-wide enabling ecosystem is what perhaps the question was. So in that case, I would suggest that there are several public, private sector platforms have been there, innovations have been there, and not necessarily every government has capacity and also wherewithal to set up the systems first and then subsequently start talking about surveillance. To make the best of the existing innovations, perhaps if the governments can come with data governance policy, data sharing protocols and standards, we can try to maximize the gain. And then the governments can actually build a backbone like big data systems or registries, and then ask everybody to connect. So at some point in time, every government will have to connect the public, private, and the consumer ecosystems. So what sequence? I think that's a context of the political economy and the variety of capitalism in each country. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. We're out of time. I know.
Dina, before you close, can I announce the next webinar?
Sure.
Since we have everyone here, because that's the deal we do. We have the next webinar on 17th of June. It's on scaling up soil moisture index based weather index insurance in Africa. And basically, we have Vendosat, really a very innovative company which is collecting soil moisture data and indexing it for developing insurance services in Africa. Very exciting webinar. Please join on 17th. and look for the announcements. Over to you, Dina. Thank you.
Thank you, Parmesh. So I really want to thank all our presenters for the excellent presentation, Sita, DDG, Huang, Patrick, Mail, and Junyi. And I really appreciate also the organizers for organizing this. So one of the things that we always know is that agriculture in many countries is a frontier area for digitization. It's always behind the curve. And I think this, what we had this evening illustrates, you know, the realm of the possibility and the things are already being implemented on the ground and how we can scale this up, not only within China, but also in the rest of East Asia and the world. I think we have a lot to learn. And I hope that in the future, we can have special discussions that will go deep dive into each of your topics so that we can really learn more from you. So thank you again. And so good night to colleagues in Asia. Have a great day in Washington and have a great afternoon for colleagues who joined from Europe and Africa. So good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.